What is going on, everyone? AP over here, Ron Pierce Sports, bringing to you once again. We got the Lineup Builder Show with our partner SaberSim. I'm here with my guy Rubio Dimes, as I am every Monday and Thursday. Rubio, what's going on, my man? How is week 2 treating you so far?
Week 2 wasn't terrible. I wish that Roschon Johnson played last night for the sake of my sanity. I couldn't believe I saw DeAndre Swift pounded into the back of that offensive line endless times for very limited gain. Travis Hunter playing over him. That spoiled my Sunday, but other than that, it's been a lot of fun. I was looking up some stats for the Falcons. I felt like we didn't get them on prime time at all last year. I think there was maybe a straight Thursday night game, but I don't remember any primetime games with the Falcons last year, AP. So this is a unique one, right?
Yes, I think it is. And
I think we had a Thursday night, and that was it. Like, every team had to have one, right?
I think the Texans too, because there were a couple teams where I was behind on the optimal data, and the Texans were one of them. So I think that was another one as well. But I think you are right. And tonight should be really interesting. I mean, just even going back to last Monday, we had the guy that was solo shipping the Millie, and then he gets passed by two guys who chopped, and that entire group collectively built like 7 lineups together, which was absolutely insane to see. I like seeing that. Like, I think it's good for the community. Get outside of the 150 maxers, the multi-entry players. Like, it's fun seeing other people ship. Then we had a solo Millie hitter on Thursday. SaberSim user, absolutely love to see that. We had a Millie up top tonight. So I sent this tweet out, Rubio, a little bit earlier this morning. Week 1 was crazy. Week 2 was crazy also. It definitely was. I'm not saying that. But week 1, we had 3 optimal kickers in the captain, 2 defenses, only 3 receivers. That was something we talked about on Monday show, I believe. This week, the receivers are back, baby. We're at 9 so far. 9 receivers going game by game, individual games, just looking at Showdown optimal builds. 9 receivers were optimal in the captain spot, followed by 4 running backs, 1 quarterback, 1 tight end. That quarterback was Deshaun Watson, by all people. And wow. There's like a lot of – and I love looking at this thing. Look, what does it mean? Who knows? For me, it's like a reminder of – like embracing variance in the NFL, especially on a game-by-game, week-by-week basis. Like even the Kansas City one, Patrick Mahomes it was a 2-4. So 2 players from Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes was not in the optimal. Joe Burrow was. So you just got to embrace variance. And I think it's fun to. So we're working on some additional content too, just highlighting that from a trends standpoint, looking at all the optimal data, what position is kind of king for captains, and then we're looking at stacks as well. Something I'm working on that hopefully I'll have live later today. But Rubio, I could go on and on and on about that. Let's get into tonight's game. Falcons, Eagles. Eagles are 5.5 point favorite. No AJ Brown. Do you know, before we get into the base build, did they bring up, I'm trying to think, who's there? Did they bring up any receivers? Paris Campbell. I think that's the guy I was thinking of.
Let me go ahead and check their transactions real quick. I didn't see any movement on the practice squad immediately. They signed Danny Gray and defensive back AJ Woods to the practice squad 6 days ago. Other than that, nothing official. So you're going to see something probably around 4 p.m., because obviously we get, AJ Brown out with the hamstring injury, which is going to be big news. I think they have until 4 p.m. of game day to call someone up if it's a primetime game like today. So that will be the news to watch. And if it is Paris Campbell too, that would make a lot of sense.
That is the guy that I was thinking that they would bring up. I think SaberSim also thinks that, just looking at these early projections. All right, Rubio, I got the base built. All done right here. What is a base build? We just take the average projections, we run it, and then we sort by projected score. We don't make any changes. We do this to get kind of an idea of the context and general roster construction for this specific slate. What's your thoughts here? So I have the captains up here. We have cheap captains that are really popping, or semi-cheap. Ray McLeod, Dallas Goedert, and in the highest optimal, sort of by projected score, Jake Elliott, kicker in the captain spot. What's your thoughts here, looking at the base build?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very surprised at how spread out the captain spot is, and this is with the slate with Jalen Hurts on it. Devontae Smith, Bijan. Like, I was expecting a little bit more stud heavy. Ray McLeod being the top captain is a little bit surprising to me as well. What we have seen from kickers has been tilting. I mean, Fairbairn going off for 22 or whatever it was last night was absolutely absurd. But I mean, that first build, if you're just talking, straight up from just, projected score standpoint, like what if Elliott did one of those things the kickers have done? Like, what do we see with the Washington Commanders with Siebert and stuff? Like that looks good, right? I don't want to ever captain a kicker though, really. I'd rather captain a skill position player, not rely on field goals to get me home. That Ray McLeod one, like, even though I do want to see what a stud captain one looks like, AP, if you can like hit the plus on Jalen Hurts, for example, at captain, and see what rank it is. So it's 38 ranks down. It's a couple points less than the others.
Wild. But
that's not a bad team at all. Like, I'd rather get on board with that, even though I do think Devontae Smith will be a priority. Like, yeah, these builds look more in line with what I would want. I don't really want to punt a 200 guy. If I did just read a tweet that said Paris Campbell seems very likely to be called up today. So it would make sense that maybe he gets a few snaps. Who's the other wide receiver dealing with the hamstring injury? That was something I did not look for. But is there another
Johnny Wilson.
Johnny
is
Wilson.
The guy.
Okay.
Yeah, he actually, he played 13% of snaps,
yeah.
ran 5 routes, and received a target last week, too. So he did not practice.
Big body, 6'7", too. I was actually going to be sitting here like, hey, what about Johnny Wilson later on in the show? So that's good to know. And I imagine he would have gotten a little bit of A.J. Brown snaps, too. So that's pretty big impact.
I think it is. I don't think Covey, is that his name? Britton Covey?
Yeah, Britton Covey, yeah.
I don't think he's like a big body. Like, so they're lacking that kind of big, target. AJ Brown, obviously, just like a massive target. And then, yeah, Johnny Wilson up there too. But if both of them are unable to go, they're lacking kind of size. Maybe we see a little bit more from the tight ends. Here's the thing too. I think, I always like to go back to NBA. When a key player gets ruled out, you see these usage shifts. Like, obviously, another player has to come up into that starting lineup. You either see other star players get more usage and have to do more work, or it kind of spreads out and you see these bumps to other peripheral, or secondary players. That's not necessarily the case in the NFL. We saw that yesterday with T. Higgins and multiple other situations. But what happens in the NFL, just all the focus then goes on the next guy, and that's going to be Devonta Smith. And, obviously Dallas Goedert. With the Chiefs, and the Chiefs always do this to key opposing players. But, they took Jamar Chase completely out of the game. What happened? You saw random throws to, both of the tight ends. Yoshi, who I was very high on. I made a very, big case for him on the Up to Lock show for premium members. 2 touchdowns, I believe, as well. So it just opens up a lot. I also think that, and this is just going to be in my opinion, like a prime Jalen Hurts game as well. So I was surprised we weren't getting more of him in the captain spot. One other note, and I'm going to talk about some of these trends. You'll see there, I ran a trends build just because I was kind of curious. But this Falcons team, they allow the most rushing, going back to last season, they've allowed the most rushing TDs to opposing quarterbacks out of any other team. So it just seems like Captain Jalen Hurts is going to be a very, very good play. Any other final comments? Are you ready should we build our script build?
Yeah, we'll get into a couple of the specifics a little later on. I do want routes run data. Do you have the routes run?
I got it all.
Covey and Dotson.
Yes, I do. So Covey, he ran 4 routes, 12% of snaps. Jahan Dotson, 24 routes, 42% of snaps.
All right,
only targeted 1 time.
All right, sounds good. That's good to know. When we get to wide receivers and stuff, that's probably where you would save money if you wanted to spend down at a position today. especially with two workhorse running backs, I guess one really good quarterback, and then one guy coming off a terrible performance in week one, but it was against that Steelers defense like we were talking about before the show.
All right. We got our base, our scripted build. We're going to add Rubio and we're going to add our bias. We're going to talk game skips. We're going to talk about how we see this one going. Just big picture, I really like how things match up on paper. If we can, so we were talking kind of before we got started, maybe like the Steelers defense is just really good. I mean, going on the road, getting 2 wins in the NFL, I don't care if it's against bad teams, really, really impressive thing to do. And they did it with their defense. And so what I'm getting at is maybe the Falcons aren't going to be as dusty. They shouldn't be as rusty headed into week 2, but it all comes down to Kirk Cousins. Obviously, if he can find any form, this is going to be a secondary that obviously got torched last season. Obviously, a little bit better this season through one game, but still, Green Bay put up big numbers. I don't know if that was more indicative to the field, which obviously a field like that is going to be advantageous for the defense, or no, for the offense, since defenses are so reactionary. What's your take, though, on quarterbacks and, this game, obviously in particular, and what we're seeing here with Kirk Cousins and Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, when you look at the Falcons in general, right? Like 9K for Kirk Cousins, who didn't look great last week, struggled mightily. And we also, Kirk with like little to no play action in week 1 and stuff, which matters. Yeah. It does. And I think Jalen Hurts, 10K, that's one of the easier clicks on the entire slate, especially when I don't have conviction on Kirk Cousins. I think Hurts has a fine projection at 21.78. I actually think both these projections are pretty fair. With Cousins, though, I want to bump him up purely because what have we seen from the last 17, 18 games from the Eagles? They can't defend in the secondary. Jordan Love even diced him up, and the Eagles won that game. I don't want to ever say, that doesn't work. Just because you're a pass funnel and stuff doesn't mean it can't work. I really want to put my faith in Kirk Cousins, and I'm doing so purely because of matchup. Like we were talking about in week 1 on this show, the Eagles were 31st in passing yards per game last year, right? Given up, I should say. So if you can't run the ball on them, which they're a pretty decent running team, run defense, I think you have to see Kirk Cousins make plays. I think 9K is a good gamble. I'd rather do it at 9K than anything else more expensive. And 19K for both quarterbacks is very fair on this slate.
I think and this again, I'm not like I love the information, I love the data. Chat, you guys are all awesome, but I think we do got to do a better job of getting out of this mindset. Just because they ran 0 play action last week doesn't mean that they're going to do that same thing this week. It's a NFL week-to-week league for sure. You're going to see things change. We saw that this week. I mean, Malik Neighbors, bust week 1. Marvin Harrison Jr., bust week 1. What happened? Those two guys absolutely nuked. I mean, I could go on and on and on. With cases just from or scenarios from week 1 to week 2 of things that we saw different. So I would just say, just keep an open mind. Obviously, I don't know, he looked a little slow. You worry about the ACL, but maybe it was him just, I don't know, not trusting the knee. Now with the, I've never obviously had that injury. I don't know what it's like, but I imagine, or what I've heard is that first game, you're always a little nervous. So I don't know. But I do like targeting this Philly team. I don't respect their defense. I know their secondary is a little bit worse, but Rubio, I just don't see how we can't have Jalen Hurts with the biggest projection here in the quarterbacks, obviously. So I bumped up. I think we see points tonight. I think it's going to be a fun game. I think Jalen Hurts is going to have to do more on the ground. I think he rushes one in. I think, maybe 60, 70 yards on the ground, I think is a reasonable expectation. I know it's pretty bullish. And then Kirk Cousins. I don't want to be too bullish on him, but I think 16, 17 range is a fair projection. Anything that I'm getting wrong here? Do you like where I have these adjusted projections at? Yeah, I agree with you.
I'd rather be
we
very
got him
aggressive on these quarterbacks moving forward, right? Like the prices are still too low. When you get Kirk Cousins here at 9K and probably the best matchup for quarterbacks, just talking about exposing secondaries too, I really want to just take the risk on it. Who cares if he didn't look great last week? He's a guy who probably heard the doubts a little bit too. I think he'd want to come in proving people wrong. His passing prop is still really, great at 225 plus, which that doesn't even include pass touchdown stuff. You're not going to get anything mobile from him, but I mean, I just think 9K for a guy who's going to drop back 30, 35 times today, still a great price. Let's be overly aggressive on them both.
Yeah, I like that. I'm definitely not hating on Devontae Smith tonight with AJ Brown out. I'm just saying that I think we overestimate. I think people sometimes think it's like NBA, where, obviously now this guy has to smash because the wide receiver number 1 is out, and that's just not typically true because defenses now it becomes far easier on the defenses. They can completely, now take away Devontae Smith. And the thing about him is just making sure he doesn't get over the top of you. I mean, he's such a big play type of guy. And now all the attention is going to be on him and limiting those big plays. So that's just my one. Like, I don't think he's like some lock play. There are definitely scenarios where he busts. So, all right, Rubio, let's get to the running backs. I think this is obviously a very, very fun running back slate or running back game and matchup. Props to Saquon Barkley. He looked awesome last week. 80% snaps. The volume was insane. I was way, way, way wrong with that. I was under on him in Showdown, and it was RIP to me very, very quickly. A couple things. So the Falcons allow the 6th most going back to last season, 6th most reception touchdowns to running backs. Eagles also allow the 9th most targets out of the backfields to opposing running backs. Both of these running backs are usage monsters. Bijan Robinson, 90% snaps last week, 23 routes ran, 5 targets on those 23 routes, 18 carries. And Saquon Barkley, 24 carries, just absolute, a monstrous workload. 2 targets out of the backfield. Obviously, what was it? One reception touchdown. Did he rush 2 in and caught 1? Or was it?
Yeah. 3 touchdowns total, 1 from Jalen Hurts, and then 2 of them he pounded home.
What are we doing with these running backs? Because they're obviously focal points in both of these offenses, especially on the Eagles side, in my opinion, with A.J. Brown out tonight.
So I made this claim before the season started. I thought it would definitely take CMC to get hurt for this to happen, but Bijan is the best pass catcher in the NFL at the running back position. So his props are always astounding at the receiving props just alone, and that doesn't even include what he can do on the ground. You just look at it right now, just off the gut check on his reception prop is a very solid 4.5. Juice on the over/under is the same too. His receiving yards prop, just for example, Bijan is 31.5. Like, you just look at those stats, right? That's like 8 points from PPR alone, right? And he can go over that easily. Not that you pass it or check down a lot against these Eagles, this Eagles secondary, but what Bijan offers in a floor is one of the best in the game. And I really think the touchdowns are going to follow suit this year. I think he's in line for probably being RB1 potentially. I think when it's all said and done, I would much rather have Bijan over Barkley purely for the fact that I know Bijan's got a great floor. Saquon looked amazing last week. I want Saquon to do well. It's great. It's good for business. I got plenty of him invest. I got around the field there. I'm happy with him. But at the same time, you're not going to get that pass catching volume. Hurts is not a check down merchant. You have to run pure on touchdowns. And I think we just talked about it. You got to leave a guy out. Barkley's the one who's kind of getting left out here. And I know the Falcons weren't that great against running backs last year. They were 20th in the league in terms of rushing yards per game. So there's a chance that Barkley could run on them. But I'd rather sell a 10.6K running back, over the 10.4 one who has much better pass catching upside than Barkley himself.
So how would you have these? I
think 17 for Barkley and 19 to 20 for Bijan. I just look at it.
17.
You got I don't even think that's overly bold. What you're doing there is you're kind of selling on touchdowns. But like, look at Barkley's rushing prop. I mean, it's only 12 yards higher than Bijan's.
So you want to go under where we're at?
I would go 3 points lower on Saquon. I don't really want any Saquon.
Oh my God, Rubio, we're setting ourselves up again. I mean, we'll go to the trends one too, because this will be interesting. And I get you. I mean, it could definitely be like an overreaction with Saquon, and if we get the scenario where Jalen Hurts, finally vultures and rushes 1 or 2 in, he could definitely rush 2. He could go for 2 on the ground, and maybe it's a Saquon game where Saquon does like maybe he just lands on that like 96 yards or 93 yards and doesn't get in the box and only gets 3 catches out of the backfield or something like that. You're right on line. And then where'd you have Bijan at?
I have Bijan. Yeah, I think 19 to 20 is perfect. So I think even leaving him alone there is fine. But I just look at it. I mean, Saquon's props aren't that great, and not even just props wise. You're not going to expect more than 2 catches a game. You're really relying strictly on him getting into the box 1 or more times. And Bijan, you're not. I mean, you're going to get 8 to 9 points weekly in floor from that passing game because they are wanting to get him the ball out in space. I just think it's a head and shoulders game. I think Bijan is RB1 this year, and it's going to be that way moving forward. And Saquon's going to be like RB6 basically.
Yeah, Tyler Algier, 18% of snaps, 3 routes ran, no targets, 3 carries. And obviously Bijan just absolute bell cow. And the target tree, something we talk about often for the Falcons is just awesome. We just need Kirk Cousins to actually like play football and we'll be good. I mean, it's exactly what I love to see. It's Bijan, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Kyle Pitts. They're just basically running them all into the ground, which we love to see. And then Kenneth Gainwell, 20% snaps, 1 target, 1 carry. I mean, again, it's Saquon. So I like this. I think it's going to be unique. It's a way to get unique, being under on Saquon. We might get dusted again, but I like the take as long as we're bullish on Jalen Hurts. I think that's the combo that you have to have. You got to be over on Jalen Hurts, slightly under on Barkley. And look, I mean, 17-5, I don't think we're in 150 lineups. We're like full fading them. So any adjustments here on the secondary running backs, or we just keep them as is?
Yeah, they're all kind of throwaways. I mean, what you'd be hoping for with Algier is more than 18% of the snaps. There was the whole thing, Bijan's going to split again or whatever. That wasn't the case in week 1. I don't expect it to be the case moving forward. 3,600 is a tall price to pay for only 20% of the snaps. I think they're fine where they're at. I was actually kind of shocked to see Will Shipley get some work last week. That was a surprise in Brazil. So it's fine. 2K is even more pricey than I'm willing to spend on a 3rd string running back, even though I spent $200 on a 4th string running back last night.
All right. Let's get the receivers up. Let's start with the Atlanta side. We'll go team by team. We have wide receivers and tight ends grouped together, all the pass catchers. Start with the Atlanta side. As I said, Drake London, 100% of snaps, only 4 targets. Darnell Mooney, 95% of snaps. Both Mooney and London ran 28 routes. Mooney with 3 targets, and Kyle Pitts, 96% of snaps, 28 routes, 3 targets. And then Ray McLeod, 54% of snaps. Charlie Werner, 41% of snaps. So what are we doing on the Atlanta side here?
So against the Eagles, you really want to target whoever runs the slot. The problem with the Falcons last week is they kind of rotated who was in the slot. Both McLeod, Pitts, or all 3 of London also all had a catch from the slot. It was actually Ray McLeod who had 3 targets from the slot. Pitts had 2 from the slot. He turned those into 18 yards and a touchdown. It's interesting for me because I think there's a lot of uncertainty. I think the projections are just really low on all these, and it doesn't make a ton of sense. Like with Ray McLeod, I think a couple of his catches came with inside the 2-minute warning of both halves. I think even 3 or 4 all 4 of the catches might have done that. But he is going to be running out there a ton of snaps because, like you just mentioned, they run a ton of 3 wide receiver sets, and he is almost always out there on the field. It's clear that Cousins kind of valued him. I think he had 7 targets in that game. It shows just kind of get him the ball quick in the space. He's pretty good in space, and I do like him at 3K. I think we could even bump him up. I don't think he's a great captain play, but he'd be a guy I want to buy on. Darnell Mooney, we know the big play ability with him. He was able to get open, just wasn't able to have anyone give him the ball in Chicago. It's like I want to buy on these wide receivers, but I don't want to buy too much. Like, that means like I think they're all projected 2 to 3 points lower than they should be. Like I would get Pitts up to 11. I would get London up to 14. I would get Mooney up to 9.5. And then I would kind of just X out the other guys. I don't need a Kadero Hodge. I don't need a Washington, Blair, Verner, Dwelly. I don't need those guys. But with these, like, these 4 guys, you have a clear target tree. You know exactly who's going to be on the field most of the time. So yeah, I think they're all 2 points too low.
I want to keep the 200s in play just with a low projection, just because I was looking at some of these builds, and so some of the Jalen Hurts like captain builds with some of these other studs. You need that last $200, $400 or 400, price, 600 price player, and like I think you could see some of these builds, as long as we get points, where some random dust ball ends up in that optimal. So I'm going to leave them in the player pool for now. Obviously, if they're not active or something, we'll take them out. But that's kind of my take there. Let me just bump him up.
I think we're going to be higher on the Eagles 200 guys.
Yeah.
I think no matter what, like I think you're going to have a lot more interest in a Covey or Paris Campbell rather than the Falcons guys who would be lucky to see the field.
So just going back to last week, Justin Fields was able to find George Pickens. Almost had if George Pickens last week in week 1, if he gets in the box, he has a pretty big game. 6 catches, 85 yards. Obviously, no touchdown there, but he was close to having a big game. I just when we were thinking of this, or when we were doing previews on this Atlanta team, it's going to be different. It's going to be the airing the ball out, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, that clear defined target tree. I don't want to disband in that after 1 week. So like I want to bump up those key guys. The targets were absolutely insane for sure, but just going off of snap share alone, they played the entire game. Like they're out there. They all 4 quarters, like almost every single play. Drake London, every single play. That was like the same case as, and again, it's different, I know, but Marvin Harrison was out there the entire game in week 1 and sucked. And what happened? No one played in week 2, including myself, after like being super high on them and riding them up. So I don't want to give up on like Drake London and Kyle Pitts. And so are you good with getting a little bit more aggressive on some of these playmakers?
Yeah, I want to bump each of these guys up 2 points or so. I just think the Eagles secondary is the one we want to attack. And all these guys seem just a bit too low for the potential production. I mean, I think there's 250 passing yards to be had here against this defense. And those projections clearly don't reflect that. I know Bijan can have 40 yards receiving on 5 catches and stuff, but they still just feel too low.
All right, we'll do that for now. Let's pull up the Philly side. Devonta Smith, Dallas Scott. So this is going to be the interesting side. So there's obviously, we're going to see passing volume here. I just don't think it's as obvious of a bump up spot for Devonta Smith. Could be way wrong. He could easily, just absolutely burn this secondary and take a deep one. And then it's like, man, if you don't have him the captain spot, you're screwed. That's definitely in the scenario of outcomes. I still think if I'm the Falcons, I don't want this guy to beat me. He's going to be the focal point now. And I think what happens is maybe we see more targets to some of these other pieces. What's your take on the pass catchers for Philly?
So this is definitely the most interesting spot because of A.J. Brown being out. We don't really have an idea of what this year's Eagles are going to look like at the wide receiver position because they got a lot of new faces with Dotson. They got Campbell in there. They got rookies who were like Johnny Wilson coming in. We don't really know exactly what they're going to do. So they wanted Smith in the slot. That was very apparent last week. I think he had a few catches from the slot last week. He is much better from there. Yeah, so I love that. So, Devonta Smith.
Yeah, I like that too.
There's 3 busts in there. That's the
one total touchdown, though. I think that's how I'm reading it, Josh G. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. But How I see that is 5 games, 1 touchdown, and only 1 time over 100 yards. So
it's tough.
Interesting.
It's tough. I mean, you look at it too. With Devontae Smith, all the routes ran and stuff too. I mean, those targets are not impressive. And that is just wild. I really wanted to come in buying on it. But if he's going to split out wide a little bit more, because the whole thing with Dotson moving in is like, look, Brown and Dotson can play out wide. Smith can play in the slot. Well, is Smith going to be able to play in the slot today? Because look at the 2 guys behind him. I mean, it's Paris Campbell, Britton Covey. I mean, those are 2 guys who are going to be in line for a bunch of snaps. Those aren't big dudes. Covey especially is a slot guy. He is not an out wide guy. Campbell has the speed to maybe make that happen, but less slot snaps for Devontae Smith is not good, especially when you're going against the Atlanta Falcons. You want to have the slot against them. The problem against them is was it AJ Terrell still there, right? So they were 5th, I think, in the league against wide receivers lined up out wide in terms of just yards per game. It's not great for Devontae Smith if he's going to be lining up out wide more. I'm okay selling on him, but I would like to make it known that I'm very timid with the fade because I don't think Brown being out hurts him. Oh, there we go. Okay, receptions. Okay, so these are the targets. That's healthy. I want Smith over London, just barely. London's way cheaper, but if you can get Smith over London, and then see what happens. I think you had 15.9 for London. So we could either split the difference with 15.4, 15.5, or like something like that. But I do want Devontae Smith over Drake London for sure. The problem is who comes in after him? What are the roles going to look like? Britton Covey made the team. He had decent preseason. How many routes did he have last week? 4. You have Johnny Wilson, who's, if he's out, there's another 5, 10 snaps, 5 routes are freed up. If I bought really low, I mean, Covey is 1,600, man. Why? Why DraftKings? Why did you
I think yeah, so just let me go through the snaps and routes real quick. AJ Brown 95%, Devontae Smith 100% of snaps last week. Both ran 39 routes, both similar target shares, 8 and 9 targets. So obviously getting the Lions work there. And then it was Jahan Dotson 42%, 1 target on 24 routes. Johnny Wilson, who I'm going to assume he's out. He did not practice, hamstring issue, 13 snaps, 5 routes, 1 target. Covey 12 snaps, 4 routes, 0 targets. And then I think it's Paris Campbell. I think they activate him. And, our friends at SaberSim think that as well. We do not have a projection on him yet, but I think that's the case. And just like going through some of the Showdown optimal data, like I always, peel to, he pops a little bit. So 200 on Paris Campbell, I think is really, really interesting. I'm going to leave him in there. Just I'm going to bump him down a little bit because he's going to be in a ton of builds at 200, getting that projection. Do we mess with any of these other guys, or we just leave it be for now? It is a tough. Do you think we get more bullish on Covey then?
Maybe I think I'd rather be more bullish on a guy like Paris Campbell. I just think I trust Covey more to be on the field, but at the same time, if Campbell's on the field, I'd like his production 10 times more than Covey.
Just do that. Yeah, let's do that.
And he's cheap. He's 200. I want to see what these builds unlock. Like clearly last night, if you missed out on the kickers, you didn't cash. Let me go ahead and just see some of the coach speak too. Yeah, John Dotson had a little bit of praise from Sirianni. Well, we got him at 7.9. The props on Goddard are 4.5 and 43.5. The props on Jahan Dotson yardage wise just alone is 27.5. So nothing spectacular. Goddard does seem to have a safe floor. I don't mind that projection at all. We're going to get plenty of Goddard, I bet, in the Sims. Other than that, I mean, I think we're good. I really wish I could see Paris Campbell coach speak, and maybe they look forward to having him out there. But bottom line is, those guys are going to have to play a lot. Like, one of Campbell or Covey is going to play a decent bit.
I'm going to bump it. This might not even matter, but, I mean, they're tied in 2, did 47 snaps, 12 routes. He's targeted once. So, is what it is.
Was that Calcaterra?
Yeah. Okay. So Goddard. So I mean, Josh D, if you're looking at those games, I would love to know what Jalen Hurts did in those games too. My thinking is, if you look at his rushing what he did rushing wise, just raw stats, I think it would be well over what his actual average is that we typically see on a week-to-week basis when everyone is healthy. So that's gonna. I don't know it. Just my assumption. Just kind of thinking through things. I have not looked it up, but I would definitely be curious to see what Jalen Hurts has done, especially on the ground in those situations. Let's go to, and that's kind of the script that we're building here, which I kind of like. Let's go to defenses and kickers. Needed the kickers yesterday. Needed both of them, which actually like was a very high trend that I saw doing the optimals. The Houston's kickers in the flex spot in a lot of optimal builds. But what are we doing? Kickers and defenses.
I am going to buy on Jay Kelly and Young Waiku a little bit. When you look at who was below, like in terms of value, it got really bad really fast. And there's a reason why Paris Campbell's probably going to hit a lot of the Sims and stuff. And there's a reason why Dallas Goedert's going to hit a lot too. There is just no one below the kickers that you really want to play. And that includes the defenses. And if I bought on a defense today, it would be the Eagles defense and hope that Cousins doesn't look 100%. That's what the SaberSim projections are telling us right now too. I don't want to be selling on the kickers when like they're literally the last line of really good plays. And then it's like a tier down. Then it's Ray McLeod, who I guess could be on the same tier as the kickers. And then it's like gone. There's no one.
Yeah, I think that was, I mean, that's a huge projection, I think, on a defense that is notorious for getting absolutely torched. I mean, they could get some sacks. I mean, Cousins can't move. So I get it. Maybe I don't know. Let's sell a half point-ish.
Campbell has not been called up from the practice squad today, but it is expected that he will be called up before the 4 p.m. deadline, I think.
4 p.m. deadline, is that what you said?
Yeah, I think that's what it was in years past. I might be off by an hour or two, but I'm pretty sure it's 4 p.m.
All right, let's get the Millie added. Let's where are we at? We want a single entry, right, and a 20 max.
Yes, single entry, 20 max, and then one for the Millie, of course.
All right, let's go back to our script. Let's get our settings. I mean, look, like Saber's going to take care of all of this for you. It's Showdown. I always bring the min salary way down. It's been pretty quick, so let's do 3,500 pool size. Let's build. So let's talk through the script while this is building. Who do you got the winner? Who do you think wins tonight? What type of score do you think we see?
I think the Eagles take this one. When you just look at the potential here of, Kirk Cousins not looking 1,000%, the game being in Philly, I just think a lot of things are going to go into the favor of the Philadelphia Eagles. I know A.J. Brown being out is a big miss, but I just can't forget just how bad the Falcons looked in week one. I think they're going to get the ship settled a little bit earlier on, but you have to remember, first-year head coach, first-year quarterback in this system, right, in terms of a new team. I just think a lot goes in the Phillies' favor today. I think Philly wins this game. I'll say I think it actually kind of goes under. I think 24-20.
24-20. Yeah, I really like the Philly side. Our guy Big T in chat in Discord earlier talking about that 5.5 number, and now it's so trappy. And now that AJ Brown is also out. I mean, look, like if we go back to last Monday, when CMC got ruled out unexpectedly, I mean, it moved a half point, like not even, and then it went back to where it was. And so that told you all you needed to know. And I don't think the line has moved too much to the AJ Brown news. Could have been already factored in since he didn't practice much all week. But yeah, I like the Philly side as well. What do you want to look at first?
I want to see the Millie. Because I want to see if Paris Campbell is in the top team. He is. I thought that would be the case. It's a 4-2 underdog, which I think is a little bit more unique. The 4-2 underdog has been hitting a little bit more than I would have expected. I would have actually expected to see Dallas Goedert in there as well. That's a slight overstack. I mean, I don't mind it at all. You get the 3 best weapons with Cousins. I do think after talking through all the positions with you, though, AP, I think my main team and like my favorite builds might be without Cousins, with Bijan, and hoping that maybe just one of the weapons get there. And even if Cousins throws a touchdown, I might be able to kind of overcome that.
This is wild.
We're definitely not seeing Kirk Cousins captain, I don't think.
A lot of this has to do with price too. I mean, the skill position players on the Philly side do feel a little underpriced relative to like our expectations if we got more of a prime Kirk Cousins, which I don't know if we're going to get. If that was the scenario, I could buy on that. But Jalen Hurts, I almost want like 100% exposure to tonight via the captain and flex spot. Not 100% in the captain, but just overall. Like if I was going to do a 5-1 Atlanta build, it would definitely look more like this. Bijan captain, Hurts, and then some of these other cheap pieces on the Atlanta side. And what needs to happen here for this to win? I mean, you need Jalen Hurts to rush for 2 touchdowns, which I think is in the realm of outcomes. Kirk Cousins, that has to just be due to price. And this got me into trouble last week with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if I want to make that mistake again. Let's go to any other thoughts here. Do you want to see the flex?
Can you go to Team Stacks and show me a 4-2 Philly? Because I think that's going to be more popular. I think 3 3s and 4 2s. Because right now we're only seeing 5 1s and 4 2s for the Falcons, which I don't think.
Do you want to see 3-3? Is that what you said?
Show me a 3-3 real quick. Yeah. Let's see a 3-3. What's the top 3-3 team? That's a Barkley team, surprisingly, with one. See, I can get on board with that. Even the second team,
I like
too.
this.
I know it doesn't have Bijan, but I can get on board with, Hurts with only one weapon, right? In this case, it's Covey. The next one, it's Goddard with Elliott kicker. I like that. There's a little bit. And then if you show me a 4-2 Eagles, too, where I just want to see if Bijan, what the top team with, just Bijan, there it is. That's a team I would like. I know I'm not very high on Saquon, and I know that I think we have Cousins very similarly projected to him, but that's the type of team I can get on board with. Would be a Hurts with Barkley, Bijan, Pitts. Then you got guys like Goddard and Campbell. Those guys are someone I can be. I could see in my main team, but otherwise, I just don't think all these have Barkley, which is crazy to me. No Devontae Smith we have seen. So, do you want to pull up a Devontae Smith team by chance now and just see where these Devontae Smith plays are, especially just in the flex?
Oh, in the flex, yeah.
So we only get 8%. That was with a low projection. Okay,
I don't hate it though, because he's going to be 50%, maybe higher, 55. He's got to be very popular.
He's going to be 50%. Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind taking. 13% might be a little light, but I don't mind taking an underweight stand. Just keep in mind when you do that, if he takes one to the house early, you're probably dead. Just keep that in mind. But if he busts, you're going to be very different relative to the field. So I don't hate that at all. And it makes sense. Jalen Hurts, captain. I'd be more interested in if I was bullish on Devontae Smith, I'd probably want him in the captain spot. Do you have a take on that? We either see him nuke or not. I don't know. It seems like it's either captain or we take an underweight stance overall.
I think I wouldn't go. He's one guy where if you're playing 20 lines and he's going to be, ballpark 50% owned, I wouldn't be lower than 30 just because he does have the ability to really end you. And he's someone who can absolutely change the game. I think maybe half the field if you want 25, but he's not someone I would want to completely neglect, especially in a 20 max where it just takes 15 points for him to get optimal. He's cheaper than Cousins. If he went 7 for 75, there's a decent chance he's outscoring a guy like Cousins and stuff. So I don't want to completely sell on him. I think can we run one more too, where we're just slightly under on Cousins and these weapons?
Let's do this. Yeah, let's do this. Let's just change it in here. Let's go back to the Millie. Let's bring up. Let me hide this real quick. Let's bring up the Atlanta side. Let's take Cousins back down. Who else did you want to take down?
Let's get like Pitts and London at 1.5 lower. So just because they're hitting a ton, which I'm fine with. I think that's a good build. And I do think, like, at the end all be all, I think I'm going to be lower on Cousins than I initially thought, just because I think these weapons can get there without him going off. And you saw it with the Jets and 49ers last week. Rodgers ended up getting there with Lazard, and Breece Hall ended up getting there. Rodgers did not end up getting there, right? And you kind of have a similar situation where a guy coming off from Achilles injury, he's not going to kill you on the ground. You know that. He's got to throw for more than he's got to throw for 2 touchdowns or more to really be in the winner, I think. And the more I think, I'd rather have his weapons than him.
Yes. And again, I made that mistake last week with Rodgers. I mean, Rodgers looked good for one drive, and then the 49ers just absolutely got after him. All right, this I think is starting to look a little better. I don't think you like full fade Cousins, especially like in the flex. In the captain, yes. In the flex, no, just because we know that this Philadelphia defense and secondary, I mean, they give up a lot of pass yards to opposing pass catchers and quarterbacks. So I think this is more in line with what 50 to 55%. With kind of what I see. Let me go to the captain real quick. Yeah, I mean, we should just do that. There you go. Does that make you happier? And let me
he is definitely not a captain option tonight. I know the quarterback's cheaper and stuff. There is one guy I'm 100% not captain, and it's Kirk Cousins. I
like this kind of exposure in our portfolio for captains. Hurts, Robinson, Drake London. My thing is being this under on Saquon makes me a little nervous. I don't know about you, but it definitely I guess if we take that Stan Bijan over Saquon and that Hurts is going to run 1 or 2 in, it could work. You know,
it's always funny too. Like Saquon last week was under-owned, and now he's going to go over-owned immediately off a knee-jerk reaction on one performance against a team that was always really, really bad against running backs in the Packers. So like, I just think like zoom out, right? If people had their biases before the season started, just go back to that bias. Week 1 tells us nothing. Outside of snap counts and stuff, we should never overreact to week 1 stuff. I mean, I thought the Bengals were dead. You know, your Chiefs ended up getting a BS saved by the refs. What's new? 2024.
Oh, he like tackled him on that last play. There were many other calls that were definitely not good. But that last call, you thought it was BS? The pass interference?
Going for the ball. I mean, I think the way to play it, the Chiefs are smart, right? Oh. Throw it up, hoping for a pass interference. No one else is going to get that call. We know that.
Oh, we're 2 games in. It doesn't matter at all. I mean, the Bengals are going to be fine.
Yeah.
They're definitely. I thought they looked good. No T. Higgins, too. They're definitely going to be fine.
Like those week 1 biases, though, right? Or I just think I'm starting to treat week 1 like it's trash. I don't really want to ever consider like, oh, man, this is going to be indicative of the season going forward, or this guy sucks, or this guy's great. I'm going back to the bias of Saquon's not worth 10-6 on this slate. I would pay $9K for him, but if I did 10-6, it would have to be in those 4-2 builds with Hurts at captain or maybe Saquon at captain. Other than that, I'd rather be underweight because I'd much rather have Bijan. I'd much rather have Hurts, and I don't really want to spend below the Ray McLeod line.
Some of these, like, there's some onslaughts, some 5-1. I mean, I think it's going to be a slate where we see, I don't know, we could see some crazy stuff happen, but you know, I mean, wide receivers have been absolutely killing it this week, and I don't neglect the wide receivers, which, you know, maybe it's, I don't know. I think if I had to bank on one wide receiver from this game being captain optimal in somewhat of a unique script, it would be Drake London over far more popular Devontae Smith. I think that would be one of my stands.
So what's the ownership on London in the captain slot if you slide over there? So if they're projecting about 5%, so you're right. It's going to be more unique than the others. Devontae Smith is projected 17% ownership in the captain slot. Drake London 5. Like that's a great play. I mean, he's going to be leverage off Bijan a little bit. I mean, I don't see, you know, a ton of other leverage opportunities, but like London at 5%, it wouldn't shock anyone if he was the leading receiver in this game and caught a touchdown. Absolutely not.
Let me just highlight this and then we'll get out of here. My trends build. Basically what I did was I looked at all of the trends. So it's like Falcons allow, ninth most rushing attempts and yards to running backs. Eagles allow, most targets, blah, blah. Like basically all of the trends around these two teams over the last, week one and then all of last year. And then I basically BVP style bumped up all of the positional players associated with that. And so this is my trends model, if you want to call it that. Ton of Jalen Hurts, Bijan, Saquon, Drake London, Goddard, Kyle Pitts, etc. The interesting thing, though, Rubio, is what some of these builds, this was if we get points. I think if we get points tonight, these players become relevant. This is where you need that 200 piece. So it's like a Hurts, Barkley, Bijan, London, Goddard. I mean, this probably ends up being a popular, very, very popular build, right? Probably duped 100 times. I mean, if Campbell is activated, obviously. And so, yeah, there's definitely some interesting builds if you go based off of the trends. I kind of like where we're at, though, in our scripted build. A little bit different. Some of those defensive builds looked pretty good, too. I mean, if the Eagles can get a pick six or something like that, run it back also with Drake London, Kyle Pitts, or Bijan, the guys that are going to get targets. A lot of different interesting builds tonight. Some of these look pretty good as well with that 200 piece. It's going to end up being pretty popular if Campbell's active and gets talked up. So give me your final thoughts. Let's get out of here and your most important player tonight.
Oh, most important player tonight, Bijan Robinson. I know it sounds a little bit underwhelming, high-owned stud, but I'm fully on board with Bijan being the top running back in this league. The snap count, the work rate, everything was there last week. I see just him being one of the best pass catchers in the league at the running back position. This is the start of something special, this season in particular. I'm very high on Bijan coming in, and I think if he has a big day, I'll be just fine at the end of the day.
I like it. My most important players, I'll say it that way, is going to be under on Devontae Smith and over on Jalen Hurts captain builds. So I know kind of a chalk donkey in the captain spot, but I just see it being a Hurts game. I like Philly here to cover. And I think some of the pass, I think that target tree, we're going to see it a little bit more defined. So I'm going to be very over on Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and some of the pass catchers, along with Bijan on the other side. So I could have some really interesting, even though I'm an Eagle script type build, I could have some really interesting 2-4 builds where I have 2 Eagles pieces, Hurts, and then one other piece with a run back of 4 Atlanta pieces. So that's going to be my interesting take. Rubio, talk to everyone first, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, helps us out a lot. Rubio, give the people a rundown of the other content that we have today.
So the Print Factory, I think, has moved up to lock. So 7:15. That will be with Big T and JSU. JSU fresh off a shipper last week. Big T fresh off 20K in NASCAR yesterday. I mean, that was kind of nice. I think he turned $100 or $200 into 20K.
Yeah.
You also have
single entry shipper. You love to see it.
Yeah, just one bullet is all he needs. With Wiley and JVC, I think they're going to be live at early in this afternoon. So be on the lookout for that. That'll be on the YouTube schedule. You also have an article up that will be from Snyder. You'll also have a bunch of content for the 3-max strategy, the playbook, the core plays, and much more, as well as the past optimals that you have up to as well. So yeah, should be a good time. AP, I think this is going to be a good slate. I'm very bullish on it. Eagles slates have not really disappointed in terms of points. I hope that doesn't change tonight.
Every slate is a good slate when we have a milli up top. We'll leave it at that. Good luck, everyone. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Helps us out a lot. Good luck tonight. And as always, run Pier.